Talking about a little bit, tell me when you're ready, about what we just saw with how you interact specifically with Dave Wilson on SNL and what his role is and what your role is and how you complement each other calling the show live. Talk about what happens.
Well, essentially, he being the boss, he could delegate anything he wants to me, and directors are all different. When I remember, I did this show with two other directors. I did it with Beth McCarthy,
I want to talk about Beth and Don, yeah.
and I did it with Miller,
Oh, Paul
Miller,
Miller
who
before.
was wanted the CBS system. When I AD'd with him, he said, "I want to implement the CBS system, which means readying the cameras, so that the cameras were readied by the AD, and the shot sequences were communicated to the cameraman through the AD. So shots were all numbered. The NBC system, we don't number shots. CBS system, we do. So in other words, every sketch would have 1 through how many shots? If there's 35 shots in a sketch, be 1 through 35. And the different cameras would have, camera 1 might have shot 1, 5, and 6, or whatever. And then you would have to ready those cameras because you would be on the PL with the cameraman. I was not on the PL with the cameraman in what you just saw. I was on the PL with music, Leon Pendarvis. All the music was cued by me. I was on the music with on the PL with score music, what they call quarter-inch tape. And I was on the PL with sound effects. And the control studio, of course. ADs are always on the PL with the control studio. The director doesn't want to be involved in dealing with the control studio. It's a separate job. Mm-hmm. And if they're not done right, they can put you off the air. Or if you cue them incorrectly, you could be responsible for them taking you off the air. So that's something all directors want delegated. Paul Miller also wanted ADs to roll the tapes. He didn't like to roll tapes. So if we had a lot of tape in the show, it was the AD's job to roll the tapes. He'd set the cue with the director. Mm-hmm. And but when the roll cue time came, it was the AD that rolled it.
And so with Davey, what changed?
Davey rolled his own tapes. But the ADs would set the cues and agree on the cues, and it would be ADs responsible to see that the tape machines were cued correctly. Some cues would change. They wouldn't be the same all the time. Some cues we would do on a 2-second roll, others we'd do 15 frame, others we would do almost from a still frame. It depended on the nature of it. So essentially the AD does what the director wants him to do. Sometimes I would direct promos, like if there'd be a live promo into the show and Lorne wanted Davey at a meeting, he would tell the coordinating producer, tell Bobby to direct the promo, because I want Davey up here in the office. So I would do that. And that would be a live promo that we would do with the cast from the set. We didn't do them often, but on occasion we did.
So how much are you juggling? How many cues are you calling? How many other departments are you in communication with when you're calling the show live?
Well,
who are you on headset to?
Leon Pendarvis, Lenny Pickett, the music room, the audio guys listen in too. Sometimes we do tracks that come from the audio room. Usually the AD cues the track, an audio track that plays in sync with the guest band. So that would be an AD cue.
And then what happens, like we saw a little bit of if a cast member ad-libs and you didn't expect something to happen, what do you got to watch out for?
Well, you can't control that. I didn't know he was going to ad-lib something. And I felt I had given the cue. I had already rolled the control studio.
What does that mean, roll to the control studio?
I had given the cue to the control studio that controls the show. The show doesn't go on the air direct. 8H goes on the air, even today, presently, goes on the air through a control studio. The feed goes to a control studio, and the control studio feeds the network. So I had rolled 8G, and those days the cue was 5 seconds. Today it's a 2-second roll cue. In those days it was a 5-second roll cue. So that meant that once I rolled her and I hear her give her cue on her end, or his cue, that 5 seconds later we're going to be away. We're going to fade, and we're going to be switched away. So I thought there should be some recognition of the sketch. So I started to cue the applause, and meanwhile this actor said a line that got buried in the applause. So he started yelling about that.
Davey started,
Yeah.
But you didn't say when something like that happens, though. Do you take it personally? Do you feel bad? Or what do you have?
Oh yeah, you always feel bad. Yeah, always. But I don't know if you could hear him at the end of what you just played. He's telling me, "Oh, that's all right, because I apologized to him again. Usually, you apologize right away when you do the offense, and then after the show, you apologize.
Yeah.
But he didn't care. He said, no, "Don't worry about it." In fact, when he used the F word, he wasn't saying it at me. Later, he said, what the fuck? He says, it doesn't matter, what the fuck? I can't show that to the kids. The teachers won't let me.
But as a coworker, and I mean, as the person you gotta please and impress the most during the show is Dave, right? So,
definitely. If you don't please him or the director, you're out. Although he wasn't that a malicious person, he's never threatened to remove me from the show or anything, ever. But I think in general, I did a good job for him.
Why did he leave in '95? Do you know why?
Because he couldn't smoke
Was
anymore.
that
They
really?
put the banning. Oh yeah, definitely.
So there was a ban in New York. You couldn't smoke inside.
Wasn't even supposed to be smoking on this show, but we overlooked it. Coordinating producer asked us if we would make an objection. We said, no, of course not. Well, how could we object? We worked all these years with him. For 2 more shows, we're not going to drive him crazy. Everybody liked Davey.
Yeah. 18 years.
Jan Kassoff used to say he was like Dr. Jekyll and Dr. Hyde. When he put the PL on his head, he was Dr. Jekyll. When he took the PL off his head, he was Dr. Hyde.
Yeah, I mean, it's very frenetic watching you guys call that show. It's very intense. Do you ever feel like panic or get nervous, like get pre-stage fright?
You do get panic at the Lord's meeting when he makes all these changes, and you don't have a coherent idea of what the show is going to be like, because you just did it, and now it's different than what you just did. You did a run through, you did a dress. And now a lot of it is different. Blocking has changed, cues have changed. Things are crossed out that weren't crossed out before. Whole speeches are crossed out.
And you got to make all those
He used to call it flying.
Yeah, Davey.
Dave used to say, well, we're flying. Flying meant we were working blindly from one page to the next. Because normally you look ahead and you try to anticipate cues or tape rolls or sound effects cues or whatever, or when there's a lot of graphics in a show. Sometimes there's a lot of Cairo in graphics, and you have to sync them up with somebody singing or something like that, lyrics. So you get a little nervous. You're going to cue them early, you're going to cue them late, stuff like that, You're not cue them right at all. Then they're out of sync and you look stupid, live. He's saying one thing, the graphics saying something else. Stuff like that you get nervous about. But it comes together.
Yeah, it just seems like with this kind of a show, there's no time to prepare. So you have
No, you don't prepare adequately because they do too many changes and too many rewrites. So even when you do have some sequence of events in your head, based on cueing or whatever, it changes. So you've rehearsed it 3 times, and now for air, it's different than what you rehearsed. So you anticipate that you're going to mess it up or something. And, then, and sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. But Lorne never cared about that. He made the changes, and he didn't care. You know, can you handle this? Can you not? And Davey always came through.
Did you ever have any thoughts about, I can't do this another week, this is crazy, I want to go back to game shows? I mean, did you ever think about leaving the show?
No, not really.
So part of you must love this.
I liked working with Davey. I liked working with Beth. Paul Miller I had a little bit of a hard time with. I actually quit the show when he was directing because we had a big run-in over a tape piece that was involved I can't think of the name of the guy. He used to do the
Smigel?
John Lovitz.
Oh, love it.
John Lithgow was the host, and John Lovitz does a sketch with Lithgow in which he gets into a cab. That's the opening shot. And the cab is in front of a key footage, a key screen. And Lovitz gets in and says to Lithgow, take me to City Hall. And Lithgow says, City Hall, it's 3 blocks, you can walk. He says, no, City Hall in San Francisco, I'm getting married in 3 hours. And then the whole rest of the sketch was we would go into these tape packages, which was 2-inch tape in those days. So all the cues were 7-second roll cues. And then we did time-lapse stuff where we would speed up the tape. And we had all these intricate cues. We had like 3 or 4 tape machines. And Miller wanted me to lay out all the tapes according to what the writer had written. And in the middle of the night, the writer came down and changed everything. Changed the whole configuration of the way the tapes worked. And we had already had them figured out and all. So I called him early in the morning at the hotel to tell him it had changed. And he got mad at me. He says, what the hell are you calling me for? He says, that's your job. He says, you work it out. So I got insulted. I says, I called you up. I show you the respect as a director, and I figured you would want to know. Maybe you wouldn't agree with it or whatever. I don't care, blah, 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 blah. So that night I quit the show. I got pissed off. I said to him, screw you. I'm not going to work. But I didn't say anything to him until the show ended. And he wanted me to roll all the tapes. So I rolled the final thing. I rolled the tag, boom, boom, cued the black. We were off the air. And I said, I won't be here next week. He said, what are you talking about? I said, I don't like the way you talked to me this morning, and I don't want to do the show anymore. Have her do the show. It was some PA there. She was in the Directors Guild. So he said, no, I apologize. Come in on Tuesday, we'll talk about it. So I went in on Tuesday, talked to him. We kissed and made up, and I did the show. But that's a true story. Paul was basically a good guy, but I didn't like that, so I quit. Mm-hmm. But I worked with him after.
Did anyone try and convince Dave not to leave?
No, that was an impossibility. Anybody that knew him knew he meant what he said. If he can't, he was kind of due to leave anyway, but he probably would have come back another season, but he wouldn't have done too many more seasons, I don't think. And he wasn't that well from his smoking and eating bad food.
Yeah. What was Beth like when she came in?
That was very nice to work with.
She was really young.
Very good to me.
Yeah? What was her...
Yeah, Davey broke her in, trained her. And then we helped her a great deal, me and the TD. And I always had a good relationship with Beth. And that's when I took over the editing, too. Well, no, I had done the editing under Davey, too. All the repeats were done by me. But then I began to do a lot of recutting because we had everything isolated. We really upgraded the show technically in which we isolated everything, separated all the audio tracks. Cameras were all isolated. So I could begin to recut the show. But and Beth gave me complete freedom to cut the show, but I never recut her intent, because you don't do that if you know anything about the business. No AD recuts the intent of a director unless they're instructed to do that. The director could tell you, I don't like the way I cut that, recut it. He can leave it up to you, or you could say, I want it recut this way, and give you the configuration, and then you would do it. But she was great. I thought she blocked very well, very similar to Davy in many ways, visually. Cameras were all paced nicely, were cut nice. She did a very good job. And then also she evolved to doing the music very, very well too.
Mm-hmm. She did a lot of handheld stuff. That was different, right?
No, she didn't use, I don't think, too much handheld stuff. One didn't allow too much imagination when it came to the music, or actually, for that matter, like he loved the crane, the Chapman crane, which is antiquated now. Nobody uses the Chapman crane. You find it in a museum maybe, but we have it. And Don King wanted to eliminate it. He wanted to go with the, what do they call that harness that Kyle probably knows. What do they call that harness that...
A Steadicam?
Yeah, Steadicam stuff. And he said, I get the same shots and all of that. And Lorne said, I want that crane in there.
Why?
Crane has to be there.
Why do you think he wanted it?
He just associates it with the culture of Saturday Night Live, the crane. It's impressive looking, and got 5 guys running, and he doesn't care about the cost or anything. So Don King had to make good with the crane.
What's Don's style like, differing from the others that you've worked with?
Don, I think, is an excellent director. I worked with him before Saturday Night Live a lot. But Don is different approach than Davey, because Davey never worried about time. Kenny could not intimidate him into rushing. In fact, he would come in late almost every day. I'd be there, and Kenny'd come in and say, "Where's Davey? Where's Davey?" And then Davey would walk in with a little brown bag, which he had sandwiches in. And he would take his time blocking. And he didn't care if it was a half hour over, an hour over, he just didn't care. Don is anxious to please. And which in a way is good. They like that, because they want to get, I don't know if Davey would still get away with it if he was still there, because that's money. And they're very money conscious now. But Davey had a different temperament. And he always wore a brown sweater. And before he started the block, he would open up a pack of cigarettes, meticulously take out a little stamp, and fold the stamp up and put it away. He had to smoke.
I mean, that studio's a small studio, too, and there's scenery flying in. I mean, quite the fire hazard for smokers in there, I would think. I can't even imagine people smoking.
I hated it, because I'm a non-smoker. I never smoked in my life. Neither did Nathalie.
When Don came in, you were still ADing, and were you still the primary AD?
Yes.
So where were you during rehearsals?
I might not have been a primary AD. I might have been doing just the editing. I was working 5 days a week for them. I think I was doing just the editing when Don came in. Yeah, because Stephanie Cohen had came and replaced me as the AD with Beth. In fact, I only wanted to do one. I was ready to quit after the first year. I worked 1 year with Beth, and I quit. And she asked me to come back and do another year. And I said, okay, I'll do it for you. So I did. And then Stephanie replaced me, Stephanie Cohen.
And then what did your job?
When Beth left and Don King came in, I only did one Saturday Night Live show with Don King, because Stephanie got appendicitis, and Kenny told me I had to do the show. And I said, I don't want to do the show. You have to do it. I said, I can't do it. I don't want to do it. I called Don at home. I said, get an AD in here. I don't care who, because I don't want to do the show. And I'll sit next to him, make sure he doesn't go down the drain, but I don't want to do the show. And he insisted I had to do it, and I did it.
Why did he want you to do it so badly?
Because he had worked a lot with me, and he knew I had been the AD there for so long. I guess he felt more secure with me than bringing another AD in there, because it is a complicated show.
And why didn't you want to do it? You were just done?
Because I had had enough of it, and I had been away from it for a long time, and I had cataracts at the time, and I couldn't read the time codes or anything, and I really didn't want to do it. In fact, when Kenny called me in his office, he said, sit down. I thought he was going to yell at me about the repeat. I thought something went wrong with the repeat on the air, and the network complained. And I said, what happened? Something going wrong with the repeat? He said, no. You have to AD this week. I said, I'm not ADing. He says, you have to do it. I said, I don't want to do it. He says, well, Stephanie has appendicitis, so she can't do the show, and Don wants you. So I did it, but I didn't really want to do it. I had enough of it.
Yeah. So what did your role become then? Control AD, or what was your role called?
Well, I did all the editing, which I really loved doing. I loved it. Worked 5 days a week editing. I was complete control of myself. I never didn't have to answer to anybody. I'd get notes, and either I'd do the notes or I wouldn't. Stuff like that. I was my own boss.
Was this primarily editing for East Coast to West Coast for the second?
No, I was editing the entire show, from the first frame of the show till the last. Recutting it, retiming it, inserting dress where I had notes to do dress, parts of dress where they wanted to go between dress and air. A lot of the writers would want to take the page 1 through 5 on air, and then 5 through 7 dress, that kind of thing.
So this was for re-airings later, or what was?
Re-airing for the repeat. Yep.
Oh, for the repeats.
Yep.
Okay, got you.
We would make them prestige. I'd remix the music also. All the music got remixed.
Wow.
I worked at FNL, Howard Schwartz for like a year and a half remixing the show.
Where did you do the editing?
The editing, I did some at Broadway Video, a lot at NBC on the switcher, 1-inch tape. And then when it became, not Final Cut, but before Final Cut, the Avid. I edited with an Avid. They brought an editor in for me, and a guy by the name of Mike Poole. And we worked together, and we were left alone. Nobody bothered us. And I'd just get the shows done and put them on the air.
How long did you do that?
For years. Many years.
And then what after that?
And I just did the control for them, 1 day a week.
And what does that mean? That's what you're doing now.
Control means the control studio is the studio that feeds the transmitter. In other words, the output of 8H goes into the control studio. Lon doesn't see what goes on in the air. He sees the output of 8H. And when we go to commercial, he doesn't see that.
Oh, I
He doesn't see the air feed. He could see the air feed if he wanted to, and they would give him a monitor, but for some reason he doesn't. And so he just sees 8H, the output of 8H. When we come out of commercial and it switches back to 8H.
I want to talk about a couple moments on the show. Any memorable moments for you, particularly challenging shows that you worked on? In particular, I want to talk about the show that aired right after 9/11, which was we weren't sure if SNL was going to do a show that week, and they did. First of all, do you recall where you were on 9/11?
Yeah, I was at my daughter's house picking up a VHR, not a VHR, but a DVD thing, and driving back about the same time that the planes hit the
towers.
I was on vacation then. I had 6 weeks paid vacation from NBC, and I would plan everything so that when the live season ended, I would do all the repeat editing for the entire summer. It was really an excellent gig for me. I was like really pleased with that. And then I would have them all done and in the can and delivered to the NBC television network, and then I'd go on 6 weeks vacation and we would go to Italy or someplace. And then I'd come back for the show. I don't remember that year whether we went to Italy or not, but I was on vacation still when the planes hit. But I was called in to modify the montage and the shots of New York City in the montage. They wanted me to eliminate any reference to the Twin Towers.
Wow.
And any sketches that might be a reference I had to edit out. So I found myself being back early and being busy just doing that.
Were you working, did you work the show that week? Were you on set in the control room? Where were you?
I worked the show. Whatever the first show was they did, I worked. I didn't miss any shows. I don't remember what show. Giuliani did one of them.
It was Giuliani and Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah, I did that show.
Yeah. What did you...
And the firemen were on it and all of that. I did that show with Davey, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of... when we went to SNL and
No,
talked...
I didn't do it with Davey, did I? Oh.
No, that was Don. That was
No.
Beth. That was Beth.
Yeah,
Beth's
Beth.
show. How do you think they handled that, the show with Giuliani and the firemen and
I
the...
thought they handled it pretty well. Well, I mean, Lorne, you know, he's sensitive to that kind of stuff. He wouldn't... Yeah, I thought they did it pretty well. I mean, I didn't care for Mayor Giuliani much at all. In fact, I got criticized for accepting the invitation to Great Sea Mansion by Adam McKay. And if Adam McKay ever hears this, he didn't really criticize me. I was very kind of shared political ideology with Adam McKay. And when we got invited, 90 of us got invited to Gracie Mansion after he hosted. And I was one of them. It was Marcy Klein, actually, who decided, Calvin Klein's daughter, who decided who would go. And I was one of them. And Adam said, "Oh, you don't like this guy's politics. Why are you going to go over and have dinner at Gracie Mansion?" I said, "I can't resist the food." So I went with Don Pardo, actually. I picked Don Pardo up in Denver, New Jersey, and we drove to Gracie.
Doing a lot of carpooling with Don Pardo. He likes to ride with you, I guess, huh? He was...
I used to drive him home after
Yeah.
Jackpot all the time.
Yeah. And SNL, you said he'd come and sit
Yeah,
away
he
with
come.
you.
He could work he'd stay in the edit room until 2:30 in the morning.
He lives here in New Jersey, or that's where he lives? Yeah.
I'd say to him, "Don, take your car home because I have to edit. I'll be here till who knows when." You know, some edits were quick and simple, others were complicated. And they were a nuisance to do, too, because you had to, you know, sync them up with the West Coast. And it was time-consuming. Who wanted to do that after I had done the show all day,
Exactly.
all week?
Exactly.
But he would ride with me. He liked to be with me. We used to listen to Italian tapes, and he fell in love with the tutor on the Italian tape. Her name was Anna Caminiti.
You mean like Italian lessons?
Yeah, Italian tapes. And he would, I love her voice. I'm in love with her and all of this.
I would love to have heard Don Pardo speaking Italian.
I don't know if he spoke fluent Polish. One day I'm walking up 6th Avenue. I meet this guy selling something. I don't know what the hell he was selling. I don't remember, and I could tell he was Polish. So I said, "Hey, by the way, you Polish?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "You speak Polish?" He says, "Absolutely." I said, "You're going to be around here a while?" He says, "Yeah, I'll be here." I went to the building and I found Pardo. I says, "Don, come with me." He says, "Where are we going?" I said, "Just come with me. I got a guy, I want you to speak Polish to him. I want to hear you speak Polish." He says, "You're crazy, Caminiti," but he went with me. We went up to this guy and I introduced him and he started talking in Polish. That's a true story.
I bet it is. I'm actually curious, all your experience on game shows, when SNL did the game show sketches, did they ever come to you to say, like, is this how you did it? Was this right? Like, game show sketches on SNL, did they ever ask your input?
The game show people, you mean?
No, the sketches, like when they did Jeopardy, when they did like...
Oh, nah. No, they never did. Sometimes I would offer them input regarding. I'd just go there and, like if they did a funeral sketch or something like that, because of my experience in the funeral business. But not really. Once I said they did a sketch where the writers had non-commissioned officers being addressed as sir. And I said, that's a no-no in the Army. You never call a sergeant a sir. If you do, you're likely to be severely reprimanded from the sergeant. Sir is only used for commissioned officers, second lieutenant and above. I said, I don't know what you're going for in your sketch, but if you want accuracy or you just want this for comedic purposes, then that's fine, but it's not accurate. They didn't pay any attention to me, but I didn't care.
Well, it must have been like meta and surreal for you though to be working on a Jeopardy or like a throwback to a 60s game show in 30 Rock, in the same building that you shot 30 years earlier.
Oh yeah, when they did the Jeopardy stuff.
Yeah, did you ever get hints in this? Did you ever what decade am I in?
No, because they did it all with the modern, the modern,
Trebek one, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm used to the old style, pulling the cards and all of it. And by the way, Don Pardo had all the Jeopardy cards in his basement.
What do you mean?
He asked Jeopardy for all those cards when Jeopardy went off the air, and Bob Rubin gave them to him. So he took all the Jeopardy cards home.
Oh, wow.
And he lined all the walls of his basement with the Jeopardy cards. And I saw that.
Amazing.
He says, "Come on down, Bob, see my Jeopardy basement." He had all of them, whatever, category so-and-so for $80, whatever. Don, I loved Don Pardo. He was so funny.
Can I interject something?
Yeah.
The bicycle story. Don Pardo riding his bicycle.
Oh. Yeah, but Don Pardo, the two of us used to find the cheapest place to park. And that guy made more money than we have hair on our head, but I mean it, but he hated to spend a lot of money to park. So we used to park. I didn't have his income, so I was always looking to park cheap. And I used to find these places, and then he would follow me. We'd park, and I'd say, I'm parking over at 42nd Street and 12th Avenue. $2 a day or something. Bobby, I'll be over there. So he decides that he didn't want to do the walk, because it's too cheap to take the bus. I don't know if it was cheap, but... So he buys himself a fold-up bike. He takes the bike and throws it in the car. And then he parks on 42nd and 12th, parking lot, circle line, pulls it out of the thing, and then he would ride to NBC, and then fold it back up, take it up the elevator, and put it in his lounge, announcer's lounge. But in those days, there was a bank on 49th Street, not there anymore. And half of that block on 49th to 6th Avenue was like glass, like dark glass. You couldn't see in it, but it was glass, and it would show a reflection of the cars in the street or people walking by. So one day he was riding with that silly bike, and he's a big, tall guy. He's like over 6 foot tall. Yeah. And he's on this silly fold-up bike, right? And he's riding up 49th Street against traffic, because it was one way going west. And he glances over in the mirror, and he sees himself in there on the bike. And he looks absolutely ridiculous on the bike. And he does a double take, and he says, "Is that me?" to himself. This is him telling me this story. "That's me." I look stupid. And he never rode the bike again after that. And he wanted to give me the bike. He says, "I'll give you the bike." I says, "I don't want it, Don."
Great story. How come no one seems to retire from quit SNL? People just stay there forever. There's so many people who've been there since the first show, or at least since, like, as long as you?
Well, aside from the hard work, they're really very decent people to work for, which is not generally known in the business for reasons that I do understand, but are hard to explain because you have to be kind of an old timer to understand it. Most people in NBC think Lorne is Lorne happens to be really one of the nicest human beings in show business. He really is a very nice man. And though he, if you don't know him or you haven't worked with him, you could think that he's a little austere or something like. Has a very, very good sense of right and wrong and justice, and he's very pro working people. He really is a good person, and not because he's been good to me, which he has. When he found out I liked opera, he would offer me his opera tickets 4 or 5 times a year, like orchestra seats. I'd get calls from his secretaries. Lorne would like you to have his tickets tonight. Sometimes they call me 4 in the afternoon. And she can tell you, right? We went often on him. And I would say, well, I'm editing the show. He says, so what? He doesn't care. You're working for him. Just go to the opera. I said, but where am I going to get 5 people this so late? But I always managed to do it. He would give us tickets a lot. And he would hold parties for the kids when the Christmas tree lighting, and can bring the children when they're small, and he'd have a Santa Claus there, and have all kinds of nice wine and cheeses for the adults. And contrary to what people think about him, he never fires anybody. People can make errors, and he wants to know what happened in this, but he doesn't say, oh, I don't want that person on the show or that. He's a good person.
Seems like he created a real family there.
Yeah, he did. People like working for him, and I do. I have deep respect for him. I have deep respect for his sense of comedy. I like that he put George Carlin there the first time. And by the way, I was involved in the first show.
You were?
Even though I didn't do it. I was the AD assigned to do the censor. In those days when they censored with 7-second delay, 2-inch tape. And they put the show through a control studio. So I was the control AD, and the censor sat in back of me. And if she heard something that she wanted censored, she would tell me, take that out. And then I would cue the audio guy to mute it. So the cue would come from the AD, but what should be the editorial judgment would come from the censor, because I didn't care anything about censor. But he fought with NBC right up till 10 minutes to air, and he won.
Lorne did.
Lorne did. So the show went live, and I was told I could go home, which I did do. So I didn't even see the show. I just went home.
They must have been very nervous.
And they paid me till 1 a.m. Because I'd been booked there to do the dress and air. And Lorne was very happy.
Did you see the show after, ever? The George Carlin?
I did after, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. I'm a big George Carlin fan.
We are too. I got to interview him.
You did?
I did. I'll have to share that with you, yeah.
I like him. I like him a lot, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you want to know everything that's wrong with this system, just listen to him.
Modern man. That's right. Yeah. What about politically? Like with this last year, SNL's gotten so many accolades for how they handled the 2016 election and the Trump presidency. I mean, do you think it's done a good job at staying funny and being relevant?
Yeah, I think that it's relevant, but me having the radical politics I have, I don't find it really politically relevant to just do what's his name does, the Alec, really.
Baldwin. Hmm.
I mean, it may be funny, a certain part of it, and not because I have any reverence of any kind for Trump, which I don't. Did not vote for him. I do not support him. But I moved way to the left of the Democratic Party. We're in a very serious time now in this country.
Very perilous, yeah.
Very. And people learn nothing by watching a guy like Alec Baldwin make fun of Trump. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Doesn't move this country forward one iota. So that's the way I feel about it.
Would you ever work on another show after SNL, or you?
Did I ever?
Would you work on another show?
No, not now. I mean, I can't do anything now. I can barely do SNL. And I couldn't do the regular show anymore in the 8H capacity. I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
I'm losing my skills, you know, the AD skills.
Well, you've been in this business a very long time, so
I have been in it a long time.
you've earned a break. Before we get to sum up stuff, I want Adrian's favorite show, lighter note, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
I love doing the Macy's thing.
Yeah, talk about how you got involved with that and what was involved with AD.
Just got assigned to it the first time, and just arbitrarily. And that's not entirely true. There was a guy by the name of Randy Wands who did it every year, and he hated doing it. He couldn't stand it, and he said, "I never want to do this again." And they took him off and put me on, and I had never done it.
Do you know what year you started? Around what year? What decade?
I had to be in the, I don't know, 70s, early
80?
70s.
Oh, really? That early?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
There was a guy by the name of Dick Snyder that directed it. And in those days, it was all-time controlled stuff. Everything was manual and 2-inch tape, and everything went through 8H. All the music and the graphics came from 8H. It was coordinated by the AD.
Was that where you were, in 8H?
I was in 8H with Milton DeLugg, Gene Hamilton, the announcer, 3 what they call patch chains, which contained 35 millimeter graphics that were the names of the, the talent on the show. Chyrons. And everything was live, done live. The only thing came from Herald Square were the cameras, that's all. Guy by the name of Schneider, Dick Schneider. He just cut the cameras, but all the inserts, graphics, tapes were from 8H, including the sound effects and music cues. In fact, I did the Thanksgiving Day Parade as a stage manager when the music was a live orchestra. And I was cueing them from 3B. Herald Square would cue us to cue the music, and it was live. But then Milton DeLugg had it all on, 1/4-inch tape.
That show's been on the air for how many years, Adrian? It's like 60.
24.
Since the 20s. So why do you think that show still has such popularity and people?
I have no idea. It was really a dumb show, but I enjoyed doing it because it was so busy. I enjoyed pulling it all together.
What were some things that could go wrong on a show?
Oh, a lot of things. The change used to not change sometimes, and it gave. I'd change the billboard to sync up with the announcer who was live, and it wouldn't change. So I'd have the wrong billboard on the air, the wrong stuff like that, or we'd run into trouble with the Today Show doing inserts. But for the most part, it went okay. I think that it was a fun show to do because it was so busy. Then, after I did it a number of years, it dawned on me, why am I doing this live? Why don't I just record all these graphics over black and insert it over the wide shot and sit back and relax. So that's what I used to do. I'd go in the day before and I'd composite everything over black. All the talent billboards with the announcer, book a live session, put it all on tape. Next day, I worked with the AD down there. I rolled it, inserted it over Herald Square, and I sat back. I didn't have to worry if the chain was going to change or not change.
Brilliant. Yeah. They still do it that way?
No, and they don't. They do it now. Nothing comes from 8H except the commercials. Everything comes from downtown now. The opposite. But it's all the equipment is much more sophisticated now. I was working with patch change, 35 millimeter slide projectors, and frequently they wouldn't. You'd cue the guy to change it, and he'd hit the button, and it wouldn't change.
Has technology helped people like who have jobs like you, or does it get more complicated with the advances in technology? What's technology? How has it impacted the job of, say, an AD in television?
Well, it degraded our production input, but on the other hand, it enables us to do a lot more things that we couldn't do in the past. SNL now technically records everything separate, where until fairly recently that was not possible. We now can put things on many tracks. We can play audio with voiceover, and we'll have the voiceover separate from the music track. So if we want to change the music or change the voiceover, we can do it. Mm-hmm. I did that with Phil Hartman. I was one of the last people to work with him before his wife killed him. I was editing a show, and my producer told me that the music that was under his voice couldn't play because they were asking too much money for it. We didn't want to pay the money. So he said, they asked me to change the music under him. So I had to re-record him because I didn't have him separate. Mm-hmm. And he was on the Tonight Show, and they re-recorded. They hooked me up to re-record him. And I did, and then I put the new music that we had clearance for under his voice. And then a couple of days later, he was shot by his wife.
Mm. What was he like to work with?
Wonderful man. She knew him too.
Mm.
Sweet.
Wonderful person.
You've worked with some of the best, really.
Jim Belushi was wonderful. I could tell you a funny story about John Belushi.
Go for it.
I didn't work. I worked with him, but this particular story, I was doing a censorship thing, the old-fashioned censorship, and I was censoring his. It was on delay. I was censoring his Samurai. Remember, he used to do
Samurai, yeah.
Samurai.
With Buck Henry, yeah.
Yeah, with Buck Henry. And one time he slashed somebody by mistake or something. You know
Buck.
about that.
He's
Yeah,
not
Buck. You're right, Buck Henry. So I forget what the hell it was, but I was down there and I was taking orders from Doris Williams, and he told me, bleep that, bleep this. And I did. And then the next day, I saw one of the ADs in the hall. They knew that I had done that assignment on Saturday Night Live. Not the next day, but the following week. And they said to me, how come when you did the delay for the Samurai, what was it, Samurai?
Yeah. What was the full name of that sketch? Samurai?
Samurai, yeah.
No,
Him with the sword, right?
Yeah.
He says, how come you bleeped out bitch and ass and you left motherfucker in? And
You did?
I only took out what she told me to do, but it was something that sounded like that, but it really wasn't that. Because she was smart. She would have caught that, and I would have blooped it. But that was their idea. They when they heard it, they thought he had said that. And I thought that was funny the way they said that. How come you bleeped out bitch and ass, but you left? Maybe we have to strike that. I don't know.
No.
You know, it was funny when you had to do the a Brooklyn voice for one of the skits.
The
Remember
what?
that? They asked you to do a Brooklyn dialect.
Oh,
'Cause you
you
have a
did for
genuine
SNL?
Brooklyn dialect for one of
Oh.
Joe Pesci hosted.
Okay.
And Pesci did a sketch called the Bensonhurst Dating Game. It was a game show sketch. And it was written by Robert Smigel. And I loved Smigel. So the AD would do all the records with the talent. Director never got involved in it. I would record whoever was going to do the voiceover. So Smigel came down, and I had the script in front of me. I said, who's doing this? He said, I am. I said, you can't do this. I was teasing him, of course. I says, you're Jewish, first of all. You're not, you can't do this. I should do this. And Smigel said to me, yeah, he says, you're right. You go in and do it. So I went in and did it. and it played. They paid me for it and everything. But I was only kidding. I didn't care who did it. But he was so funny the way he said, yeah, you do it. Smigel was a good writer. I liked Smigel.
Yeah.
Robert Smigel, fabulous guy.
Who were some of your other favorites in the cast and crew?
Hartman was one of my favorites. Jim Belushi, Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Fallon, I love.
Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell. But Jimmy I got pretty close with, and Hartman I was very close.
So you interacted with the cast more
And
than-
Hartman, when I recorded him in California, he was funny. When he got on the headset with me, he's in Burbank and I'm here in 30 Rock. He gets on, and the first words I hear out of his mouth is, Caminiti, and he starts doing all this gibberish Italian, which he used to do with me whenever I recorded him at the RCA building. In this case, he was in Burbank. And he's going, all these stupid words that don't even resemble Italian, And then at the end, he said two real words in Italian. Pasta con sarde. That's pasta with sardines, because I always used to talk to him about that. I used to, every time I'd see him, on a break or something, I'd say, hey, we're going to have some pasta con sarde today, pasta con sarde. So he goes, hey, Caminiti, pasta con sarde. He was a nice man.
Yeah.
He was a smart man,
I'm
he had a lot of uncles that were like theologians and intellectuals in the Catholic Church.
Did you hang out with the cast a lot?
No,
Or work
not
with them?
really.
Yeah. Did you go to the after parties after the shows?
Almost never.
Yeah. Were you just on the first, in your car?
I
on
was
the way
out
home?
of there. If I didn't have to edit, I was out. Very rarely went to any of the parties. I'd go to the last party at the end of the year with Pardo. But I would never stay too long.
Yeah, because they're legendary from what I hear.
Yeah, Pardo didn't stay too long either.
Well, you guys had a long ride back over the bridge. I don't blame you.
Oh, we used to have fun, listen to Italian tapes and
Yeah.
chatting about Bob Stewart.
Right. Yeah.
Bob Stewart once said at a party, he says, Don, he says, you'll always be my announcer on any game show I ever do. As long as I'm alive, you're going to announce the shows. You're going to be the MC. He says, and you know why that is? And Don said, why is that, Bob? He says, because one, you're the best in the business. And number two, you never ask for a raise. That's what he said to him. He had all kinds of one-liners.
Bob did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He used to say that if it's true that the meek shall inherit the earth, I'm up Schitt's Creek. That was one of his lines. Another time he said to one of the professors that he was about to fire, the guy got all bent out of shape. He says, apparently you have no experience with dictatorships. He says, I'm the boss here.
Who are some, All the shows you've worked on, so many shows in your career. Is there a genre or a particular show or producer or something that was just you would say was really the highlight of any of the different kinds of jobs you've had?
You know, I liked working on the soap Another World, to be honest with you. Which
Really?
Yeah.
Just
Well,
one year you did on that too.
How long did I do it?
1 year you told me.
I guess at least a year, maybe more, I don't know. And then I had worked on other game shows out there too, called Somerset. But Another World, I was permanently assigned out there. Even though Paul Roche was not one of the easiest guys to work for. He was a tough producer. He was very good in his job, and he hired theater directors. All his directors in television were from the theater. And some of them had won Tonys and all of that. They were good directors. So I learned a lot working with them. And they were good because they wanted the AD to handle the less, all the other aspects of the show, like rolling the tapes, editing. They wanted you to do the editing, sound effects and all. And they just wanted to concentrate on the cameras and the talent, getting the drama from them.
So it was like TV 101. You had to learn how to do everything on that show?
On what? On Another World? Soaps are esoteric. They're different. A lot of ADs can't do soaps. Because, not that they can't do them, but they've never been assigned to them, so they never learned how to do them. And they're different than other shows. They back time a little differently because you have to back time every speech. You edit them. You have to edit them. Mm-hmm. In the case of Another World, you had to really do whatever the director wanted you to do because they didn't want to be involved in how television works or any of that stuff. They just wanted to be involved in the visual aspect and the acting. Mm-hmm. And there were different directors every day. I mean, one would direct for like 3 days or 4 days or maybe a week, and then another one would come in. And they were all different.
What did you learn from your time on the soaps about the business?
What
did you learn about the business from your time on the soaps? Anything that carried through?
From doing soaps, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was an opportunity to work with the cast members, and I had done that before when I was a stage manager. I worked directly with them. As the AD, you really don't. The director does. But you got to watch them perform, and you edited their mistakes and stuff. I'm sorry?
No, go ahead.
I just respected the way Roche, how professional he was. He was not an easy man to work for, and he was known to get rid of ADs. If he didn't like you, that was it. He'd tell scheduling, don't send that AD out here anymore. And he also gave ADs an opportunity to direct a lot.
Right.
He would, wherever he could he would upgrade an AD to direct. If he got used to the AD and he thought the AD could direct, he'd give him a shot at it, which was good. I never directed any of his shows, but probably if I had stayed out there, I might have had an opportunity to do that.
Right. But that wasn't really your interest to go into directing?
Well, if that hadn't been so grueling in the hours, I had to be there at 7 a.m. in the morning, and we taped till 6 p.m., and then almost with very, very few exceptions, there were things to be repaired, and the AD would have to do the repair. So I would have to drive from Brooklyn to the RCA building and begin to edit at 8 o'clock at night, sometimes working till 11 or 12, and then driving back here, getting up at 5 in the morning, going back to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So after a while, I didn't want to do those hours anymore. I made a lot of money, but I didn't want to do it.
Yeah. Is there any piece of advice that anyone has given you about maybe not just ADing, but the television business in general that impacted you?
Well, offhand, I can't think of any. Well, there was a famous line. It's a one-liner, but I think it applies. You know, you can do a lot of shows, and you can do them right and well and perfect. And if you mess up, so there's a famous line in television: "You're only as good as your last show." You've probably heard it.
Mm-hmm.
Have you?
Yes.
You're only as good as your last show. You screw, especially if it's a major screw up and it's live, and it embarrasses a talent. One of the biggest screw ups I made, I took a show off the air that I was directing before it was over. I mean, that's pretty major. And it was with one of my favorite journalists, Edwin Newman. I worked a lot with Edwin Newman as a stage manager, where I got to know him well. And I was doing an 8H, 5H it was called in those days, which was the operational hub of the network, and this is in the 70s. And I was controlling a movie called Movie 4, which was in many parts with commercial breaks and slides and live announce. I had an announcer in the booth and I was suddenly asked to fire up a studio and direct Edwin Newman in a one-camera studio along with Texas, because some guy was shooting at people from the Texas Tower. And I had a stage manager, and I remember telling them, put it in another studio. Well, why are you asking me to deal with this? Well, we want to get on the air fast, and you're already on the air. So I did it, but I got confused about something toward the end, and the producers were in back of me. And I had to keep my movie right, too, while I was directing this thing, which wasn't terribly difficult. It was one camera in Texas, but nevertheless, I had to pay attention. And I was telling the TD, roll the patch chain, this, that, change the slides, so that when I got back to the movie, I could continue to resume the movie. And I said, when is this going to be over? They said, it's over, it's over. But they meant it was almost over. So I turned around and saw Newman on it with egg on his face. And I figured it's over. So I cued the TD to take the slide. I cued the announcer to say, this concludes our interrupt, whatever the language was. And I released the channels back to the movie. And the show wasn't concluded yet. He had thrown it to Texas. I didn't hear the cue to go to Texas, so I never cued the TD to switch to Texas. TD rightfully took my instructions. And whatever happened, I thought I was going to be fired over it, but they didn't fire me. And I went to see Newman that night. And I walked into his office. I didn't walk in, I asked for him. He got up out of his chair and came over to me, extended his arm, and told me what a nice man I was for coming in to apologize. He says, you don't owe me any apologies. It's very nice of you to come in. I said, I was confused myself, is what he told me. That's a true story.
That's generous.
He was a nice man. Edwin Newman was a nice man.
Yeah.
If that had been Tom Brokaw or somebody, like, they would have had me fired. Who's that idiot in there directing?
Yeah, you've had the good fortune of working with some really decent people, it seems like. Rare birds in that industry, I think, today.
I had incredible regard for him, and I worked a lot with Chet Huntley too, and Dave Brinkley, Frank McGee, Sander Van Oka. Those names that ring a bell to you?
Yeah, Chet Huntley, and Steve Allen's boys did the knockoff on the Huntley Brinkley report. Yeah, sure.
I even worked with OJ a lot, and I never cared much for him. Even before he was involved or whatever he did, never liked him. Well, I wasn't a sports person, really.
You told me that. Yeah, you
Yeah,
worked in
not
all these
really.
sports, but you didn't. Even though you would skip out of run home and play.
Oh yeah, I was
stickball.
that kind of a sports person to play, but not
didn't
to
follow
like
it.
look at football and
Yeah.
know who's playing and what team is where or who's. I never cared about any of that.
Is there any kind of a show you would have liked to have worked on? You didn't have the chance to?
Well, I wanted to do, and I don't think mainly because of the show. I just wanted to do it because it was convenient. I wanted to do the Letterman show.
With Gurney.
I was not a fan of Letterman, but I wanted to work with Hal, and I wanted those hours.
Did you ever approach Hal about?
No, and I would not have, because his guy was Pete Fadovich, whom I took Saturday Night Live for.
Right.
Because he wanted to give it up.
Yeah.
I was not gunning for Saturday Night Live. No way.
Yeah, you said. Well, I think it worked out okay.
Yeah,
It's been a fun ride.
I think so.
Would you say there's been a professional achievement in your career that, or a moment on set or in a live take that is your proudest career achievement?
I would have to think about it.
I see a lot of awards on the wall.
Yeah, but there were awards really won by others that I just, for some reason, they give it to the whole production team. You know, a lot of those were won by Don King, but they give it to the ADs too.
But one of the things you said is that you edit the whole thing that's submitted to the people who judge these awards. It's your edited show that gets submitted and then becomes,
I don't know if I ever won anything for editing, did I?
No, but I mean.
But in terms of your own
Yeah.
personal pride in...
And you do edit all those shows.
Oh yeah, I did a lot of editing that I agonized over, and I could have slept over and I would have gotten away with it. Nobody would have known the difference, or not done them, like the Hanks edit. And the one I did where I edited to the same camera, that's like something that you automatically say, well, you can't edit to the same camera from air to dress. But we did it. And of course my editor played a role in it, but he had given up and he started strumming his guitar. He said, this is an impossible edit. And I think I wouldn't have tried so hard, except that it was something Lorne wanted. He wanted it.
They pushed you.
I used to get into arguments with people about things. I got called in for not doing an edit that I had a note on by Audrey. And she said the writer was very unhappy. He had asked you to do an edit to dress. I said, it involved the Susan Lucci show. Lucy? What's
Yeah,
it?
Susan Lucci.
She played in a sketch in which Kevin Nealon was a baggage guy in an airline, and they had him in a suit, and then they had him in a suit undress, and then on the air they had him in what he should be in, the overalls the baggage guys handle, right? They don't go around in suits. Why they had him in a suit to begin with, I don't know. But she wanted me to intercut or something, and I said, yeah, I can't do that edit. And then I didn't even tell him that. I just didn't do the edit. And the show went on the air, and the writer saw it. He went to Audrey and says, I wanted Bobby to put... So she said, will you go in and tell him? So I went in and I said, I can't make a cut where the guy is in a suit and then the next cut he's in another suit. Doing the same job, you know.
Right.
He was okay with it, but we used to get notes like that from writers.
I want to talk a second about the Directors Guild of America.
The
So
Directors Guild.
you joined in 1986, I believe, and
Way before that.
you joined before that?
Way before that, in the early 60s.
Oh, wow, okay. So
86, I had already been ADing Saturday Night Live
yeah, I
since
wondered
81.
why that was so late. So that's wrong. And
No, I went in the
there.
early 60s in the Guild. I can't tell you exactly what year, but...
What's it meant to you to be involved with the Guild?
Well, you had to be, first of all. Once I was offered the stage manager's job, contractually the stage managers are Guild members, as the ADs are and the directors. So I had no choice but to become a Guild member. And the council, of course, oversaw that, you know, investigated me and all of that. And they voted that I could join, so I did. And I've been with the Guild since. I was active with them for many years in labor affairs. I was a member of the negotiating committee in '87, the National Negotiating Committee. And I was very militant with the Guild in terms of that contract. I voted to decline. I didn't accept it. We voted to strike. I thought the strike should happen because the neighbor people were out on strike. And it was set for midnight, and Sunday night, midnight, 12:01 a.m. or whatever it is. And we had very good labor lawyers at the time, and Friday before the deadline, the Guild asked us to meet again. And the lawyers called me and said we had to meet, and I didn't want to meet. I said, if we meet, we're going to sell out. And she said, no, we won't. And we did. We negotiated till 2, 3 in the morning, and finally the RCA lawyer said, I don't know if it was RCA or GE, might have been GE, said, this is it, you know, this is the final, we won't offer anything more than this, you know, take it or leave it, come back we'll be back in an hour. And the vote was 6-2 to accept the contract. So the strike never happened. We went to work, crossed the lines and named it.
Yeah.
And we had them in a good position because the All-Star game was coming up and a trip to China was coming up. So they would have to have done that, all of that with non-DGA directors and non-DGA ADs. And then NABIT was out also, non-NABIT. So it was kind of a time to use labor strength, you know, legitimately, I believe, the issues. But the Guild is very good to its members. I mean, if you work, you do fine, but if you don't work, then forget it.
You think they've had a instrumental role in your profession and strengthened it through the years overall?
Well, I think they do more for film than they do for the television people, but I think they're better now with television than they were when I first joined. But I don't know. I'm not informed anymore about their affairs. I don't read their magazines when they send them. So much is freelance. And I don't know if they really are that concerned about ADs. Maybe the film ADs they are, the first and second assistants that work at film. But not television ADs.
There needs to be a stronger voice, you think?
Yeah, and I'm fighting to make that happen. I'm getting involved now in union activities for the first time in many years. Beginning now because there are some women at NBC who have brought an arbitration against NBC. And it has nothing to do with that they're women. It has to do with the job, you know. It's not a woman's thing. You know, there hasn't been any abuse or anything like that. It's just anti-labor stuff, and it happens that it's affecting women. But it's not because they're women. It's whoever. They're just trying to eliminate jobs. And also my job that I'm doing now is gonna go. The job is not going to go away, but the operation is going to be moved to Boulder, Colorado. And they're going to company's going to probably suggest that the 8HAD work with an unguild director or associate director in Boulder, which we're not permitted to do by contract.
I see.
And they can't really move that to Colorado because the nature of it is too complex. There has to be meetings between the control AD and the principal AD in 8H.
Yeah.
Involving when we have complex operational issues like Kanye West being on the show, and we have to censor him, and they want to do the censorship just for his musical number. Not years ago when we censored the entire show. We put the whole show on delay. Now they want to put just his musical number on delay, and then go back to real time, and then go back to delay for the musical number.
Right.
It's not brain surgery, but it's complex, and if it goes wrong, it screws the whole network up, that kind of stuff. But
So it's complicated.
it's complicated, but Comcast is very, very anti-union.
Yeah, you said. Is that one of the reasons why you want to have this be your last year?
No, also I'm exhausted. I can't. I'm 81 years of age.
We're
I can't do this anymore.
I can't believe you're 80 wonderful, and I can't believe you're 81 because you have more energy than me. We're getting to the end of this torture. Just a couple questions. To someone who's an aspiring assistant director, just wants to go into directing in general and television today, would you have any advice you would give them?
Yeah, I would tell them to first of all, I favor film over television. Not that television can't be as good as film, but it seems more difficult to do serious television than it does to do a serious film, especially with the independent filmmakers, whom I have a lot of respect for. But usually independent filmmakers are not guild people. They make their films independently, and it's the studio people that, Paramount and Universal that have the big contracts with the Scorseses and the Coppola. But it's a good question, actually, because I feel Coppola's films, his best films, are his ones he's made on his own, not on behalf of the others. Are great too, but like Tedro, and there's another one recently he made. I think that he puts up the money. He's the producer. He doesn't have to answer to the studio. So creatively, they're better.
Right.
My advice would be to people that go into film or television, try to do something with the arts. Try to influence more drama. You can do serious drama on television very easily. And it can be directed well and performed well. And if you did it right, you'd get the right kind of talent that would do it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard because of commercials. But there's even ways of dealing with that. You get I think, like when they did the opera, the Armall and the Night Opera, they had one commercial in the show. I can't remember if it was at the beginning or the end, and that was it. No interruptions. And Hallmark was happy to be associated with it.
Yeah. Well, now with all the production companies for like Netflix, and there are no commercials. So
No, that's
might
true.
be the future of where we're going. Yeah.
But I don't know that people. I almost had Lorne doing a new production of Hallmark and the Night. It looked like it was going to happen. Everybody got all excited over it, including him. And then he dropped the ball on it in the middle of the summer. Because he wanted a young up-and-coming singer like Justin Bieber or something to sing the role of the kid.
Really?
Yeah. Then Eugene Lee tried to make it happen. He even went through the trouble of designing a set. Did he talk to you about that at all?
No, not that. He talked to me about the pencil factory, but not.
Lorne gave him a pencil factory.
Yeah, that's what they're both. He said they're both retiring to Maine to make a pencil factory, and that's going to be their.
Well, it's already there, isn't it? Isn't it an old structure there?
It's yeah. He bought the equipment. He said, and.
Oh, he wants to actually make it into a functioning pencil.
Yeah.
Both of them.
According to Eugene, yeah. He showed me the pencil.
That's funny.
Yeah. I thought he was joking. He's not joking.
Yeah, I didn't know that. What is it? Like the typical looking pencil?
Yep.
Yellow, like the.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see Lorne doing that.
Why does that not surprise you?
No, it doesn't surprise me. I could see Lorne doing that, wanting to do that.
Is it just because he likes throwbacks? He likes retro. He likes just old, like
he
the
likes
crane.
the past in many ways, even though he's progressive in other ways.
Yeah.
I know they were up there at the farm.
Mm-hmm.
Did he tell you about that?
Well, he was there a lot of the summer. He said, yeah. I mean, Eugene has like a house up there now. He's
He
got
does.
like a structure or something up there. I know we want to go.
Our Lord's property, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, because he's got 10,000 acres or something like that.
Something crazy like that. Yeah.
And I asked the Lord, I said, well, who was up there? Jack Nicholson and the people like this? No, nobody, just us. I said, what do you mean by us? He said, me, Lorne, neighbors, people. No celebrities. There were no celebrities there. I said, that's great. That's great.
He's making his own utopia.
I said, who cooked? Alice? He says, no, Alice wasn't even there. I said, his wife wasn't there? She said, no. I said, who cooked? He said, he flew in some French chef or something.
Must be nice. All right, we have one final question we ask everyone, but it's a toughie.
It's a toughie.
How would you like to be remembered?
How would I like to be remembered? I probably would rather not be remembered. I don't know.
Too late.
I don't know, because it sounds corny, actually. All of this is good, and I'm grateful for all of it, but in the end, I want a better world for everybody. I'd like to be remembered as a guy who wants a better world for the young people and the children, I guess.
That's beautiful.
That's why I have the politics I have.
Yeah.
And I think it's possible. And it's not corny to think that, but people have to make it happen. Look at John Lennon, right?
Yeah.
That's what he wanted.
Well, I can only hope for what you hope. Maybe someday we'll get there.
I think it's essential to try to make it happen.
Is that what you think you'll be focused
I
on?
think it's essential because it can't be indifferent to what's going on now. If we are, that's equivalent to the crimes of being indifferent to the Holocaust. And unless there's no God, which is quite possible, and none of this means anything, I think a lot of people are going to burn in hell for being indifferent.
Yeah.
And I'm not a religious person at all, but I like the notion of right and wrong and justice, you know.
What do you think we can do?
Become an activist, forget Democrats, Republicans. That's nothing but a scam. You gotta speak out against these, not the way Alec Baldwin does, but you gotta speak out against these immoral laws that are totally illegal, killing children all over the world. Yemen. How could we be indifferent to that?
Yeah. Well.
And I also believe there are millions of good people in the country and in the world who want that. But they don't, to think that you're going to find political expression for that in a Hillary or an Obama or a Trump is just absurd, in my opinion. At one time, I did think that. I voted for Obama. I voted for Democrats most of my life. I never voted for a Republican. I don't think the capitalist system works either. I think it's too much inequality.
Yeah. Are you hopeful?
I'm hopeful that it goes away in a peaceful fashion, of course, and is replaced by something that is truly a political expression of people who are fully humanized, like Marx envisioned. Marx was not a Stalin. He was quite a bright man, actually.
Yeah.
He just might have known a little something.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Fair pay, equal treatment of all. Yeah.
Well, ownership of the means of production by the workers. Why do you need bosses?
Well, maybe when Lauren takes SNL off the air, he'll just give people jobs in the pencil factory, and you guys will everyone will own a piece of the pencil.
I could be wrong, but I think Lauren has got a lot of complicated deals with NBC through, what used to be the rights and all the, what do they call it, syndication rights and stuff, and that probably a lot of that has changed. But as far as I know, the sole owner of Saturday Night Live is the Comcast Corporation.
Yeah.
It's NBC Television.
Yeah.
He just signed a contract a couple of years ago for another 7 years.
Oh yeah. You think he'll keep doing the show?
Not after these 7 years, I don't think he will.
Yeah.
He could,
Yeah.
but I think he'd be crazy to do it.
I think you were there for a very special part of history that probably won't be repeated, even from the early days of the show,
No, you're right.
Good times.
Yeah,
It was a shining moment. And
you're right. By the way, did you interview Schiller?
Bob Schiller?
No, Tom Schiller.
Not yet.
But you're gonna.
We actually.
He's one of my favorite people, Tom
That's
Schiller.
the one Diane wants us to interview. Yeah, we're gonna hopefully get
He's
him.
a very unique guy.
Doesn't he live here, New Jersey?
I think he lives in Westchester.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, but you know who would know for sure is Joey.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's who told me he could get him.
But
Yeah.
I always admired Schiller. He did films with Henry Miller, and did you know that?
No, I didn't.
He did.
Henry Miller?
Yeah.
The writer?
Yeah. In France.
No. I would love to see those.
He's a very unusual guy and very bright, and I would love to see. To me, the people that now they don't even come close to him. They don't hold a candle to his new film unit. These films they have production value, but
Yeah.
they look like trailers to me. I don't know what I'm seeing. Schiller did such imaginative work with 16 millimeter camera.
Is there anyone else we didn't talk about that you want to acknowledge or thank or just pay tribute to that you didn't get a chance to yet?
I should pay tribute to a guy by the name of Tom Smiley, who was not at all involved in anything production-wise. He was just a management guy who was in charge of hiring stage managers and gave me the opportunity to take a stage manager's job, which I totally didn't feel qualified for at all. And I was scared as hell when I had to observe my first show or do my first show alone. But somehow I managed through it, and I survived. Tom Smiley was an unusual guy.
Critical people along the way, yeah. Do you ever have an agent or a...
No, never had any agent of any kind. It's not in my nature to have an agent.
I didn't think so. Kind of knew that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think unless we missed something, Adrian, then I just want to say thank you so much.